The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. Any references to performance of securities are thought to be materially accurate and actual performance may differ. As always, please remember investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Daily Dots, your Friday edition here on September 26th as we get rather close to October here. The leaves are starting to change here in Washington. I'm sure they are where you are, unless you're in the other hemisphere. I'll go through markets quick, and then I have like a lot of little things to hit on, but I don't think it'll last too long. For one thing, I got to write, and I got to get home to watch my Houston Cougars play against Oregon State tonight, so I won't take too much of your time. S&P closed up 0.59 on the day. Important move as we were very close to getting into negative gamma, as I talked about a bunch yesterday, so kind of an important move higher. We're not out of the woods for next week, but at least they were able to hold for this week. With that said, it was a slight red week for the S&P for the first time since like July. Yeah, it's the first red week since July, going by candles. NASDAQ, same thing. You closed up 0.41. You closed red for the week, although you did have a red week there in August. Small caps are up 0.86. Equal weight up 0.99. I talked about it breaking that trend line yesterday, so now you're kind of right back to it from the bottom. Mag 7 up a little over 0.5%. All world ex-US up 0.38. The dollar finally had a down day, down 0.26. Still over 98 though. Bitcoin pretty flat. Oil up about 0.5%. It was up more in the morning. The Russian stuff, all the news coming out of there, it has been kind of picking oil up. But then the rig count in the US came out today, very strong. You've been up 5 weeks in a row on rig count in the US, and today was like a big move higher. So to me, in my opinion, the only way you're going to get oil up in any sort of meaningful way up past, $75 or something is to have U.S. production, which basically means shale production, start to decline some. The rig count the last month and a half is suggesting that's probably not really going to happen, at least not soon. So tough for oil bulls who keep calling a top in shale, and it just kind of keeps not happening, and it's starting to look like it may still be the case. Gold up another 0.6, silver up almost 3%, up by 2 3/4. You're pushing over $46 now. There you're at $37.94 on gold. Gold miners up another 2% today. Platinum has been a monster. It's going straight up another 5% today. Palladium up 1.7. Copper up a little bit, kind of retrace some of the big wins from the mining issue for Freeport. On yields, the 2-year down about 2 basis points, pretty much flat on the long end. And then in Mag 7ville, you had Tesla up 4%. Most other stuff was pretty flat. Yeah, nothing else did much like to really be a cause for concern. Chinese equities were down about 0.8, so kind of underperformed both U.S. and rest of the world today. So a few things I want to talk about. Something we haven't covered yet because I find it exhausting and I haven't wanted to, and that's the government shutdown possibilities. Which you go to Kalshi at the moment, it's about 80% chance right now, which sounds about right to me. It looks like you're probably going to get one. But both sides kind of also saying the right things about maybe finding a way to sidestep it. The Democrats are wanting reinstatement of some Obamacare subsidies and some Medicaid stuff that was cut. I think the Medicaid part is a non-starter. GOP is never going to agree to that. Maybe they would agree to some of the Obamacare subsidies, which in my opinion they should, because that's the kind of thing that can hurt them dramatically in the midterms. It can hurt the economy. It can cause job losses, like things that aren't good for, voters. That kind of applies to Medicaid too, but I think that one's more defensible for them. I don't think the Democrats are going to get much of that. I think part of this is they just want this fight. Uh, on the other side, President Trump has threatened if they do have a shutdown to do permanent layoffs across the government. So a lot of kind of mass firings across the government. It just I think as a way to put some fear into the Democrats on going there on this. Will he actually do that? I don't know, but it at least for the moment looks like he might have a week or two, shutdown kind of situation, unless the GOP gives some very small subsidies for Obamacare back to the Democrats, something that they can just take and call a win, and then we can all move on. It's also possible that if they make, they really pinky swear to do some serious negotiations in the next month or two, that we can get a clean funding bill through, and then they'll do the negotiations. Both of those are possible. We'll see how it goes. Not honestly a huge deal for markets. That's one of the reasons I haven't talked about it. But because it's jobs week next week, I finally had to talk about it. Because if we do have a shutdown, the BLS's policy is essentially to not publish the jobs data on Friday. Obviously, that's a pretty big deal. So if we do have a shutdown and it lingers and through the week, next week, then yes, we will not have jobs data Friday, which means the ADP print will be very important. I already think the ADP print should be more important to people because it has done a better job of capturing reality than the BLS anyways. But notable for what we're expecting there next week, the actual BLS report, the non-farm payrolls report, we're expecting a 70,000 jobs print, and ADP is expecting 50,000. And I'll look real quick to see if the unemployment report, or unemployment rate rather, is expected to move or not. I can't remember. So let me check in real time here. Riveting radio. Let's see. Unemployment rate. Yep, it's supposed to stay at 4.3. That's the expectation. The 70,000 print, that seems like it won't be easy to beat, but we'll have to see. And then for, I think, manufacturing jobs is going to be interesting, and that's expected to be at -10. So another negative. I think we're down 40,000 since 40 or 70,000 since April. As far as data today, you had really more strong data. You had income and spending for August, both better than expected. So, and the savings rate was lower than last month. So like all this stuff points to the consumer doing more than fine, to consumption doing fine, to incomes being fine. Like all of it suggests the economy is good. I mean, if you look at the current Atlanta Fed's GDP now tracker, you're at 3.9% growth for the third quarter. I mean, that's very strong. You're coming off of strong growth last quarter and most of last year. Like we basically had one bad quarter because of, a trade snafu from all the tariff front running. Other than that, you still have growth above trend. You have basically everything's fine except, the labor market has weakened lately. But even there, one thing I've noticed that people are struggling with is if you look at the labor market data, like obviously it's eroded from the incredible heights it reached in post-COVID. But if you compare it to the labor market, say from 2010 to 2020, like it's fine. Like for most of that decade, you would have killed for the labor market we have right now. So it's easy to lose sight of that because of the change in the last year or two has been kind of ugly. So just something kind of, I don't know, to me, keep in the back of your mind is like, yeah, the labor market has really slowed down and it could quickly erode. I don't think that's a crazy view from, the doves out there. But with that said, the economy's fine. And even the labor market, for the moment, you just snap the chalk line right where we're at. It's fine.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. Any references to performance of securities are thought to be materially accurate and actual performance may differ.
We get ISMs next week as well. Those are expected to be 52 for manufacturing and just under 52 for services. See how that goes. One thing I wanted to mention was the 10-year yield, and that's because we've actually bounced a good bit. We've bounced a good bit on the 2-year as well. But the 10-year is now 18 basis points off its low. And I think that low was like right on Fed Day last week or whatever. So I mean, 18 basis points isn't nothing on the 10-year. We have had a lot of housing market data kind of picking up here lately because rates went down a bunch, so that's super helpful. But now you're 18 basis points off the low. You keep getting some of this good data and everything looking like the economy's actually not bad. And like I have talked about the last couple of days, like we could be early cycle, not late. If that's true and the data starts showing that, like the 10 years mispriced, it needs to be probably 30 basis points higher. And then bam, like you're right back to housing being a big problem. So in a way, you almost need the economy to soften for the economy to do well. I know it sounds weird, but if you get yields right back up, it's going to create its own headwinds. Talk about immigration a little bit, and only because I was just looking at some of the stats, and some folks did a study that showed basically since COVID, immigration itself has been worth about 1/5 of GDP growth. And that's simple because if you just look at the actual, calculations, how it's done for GDP, just the number of humans is part of it. So you get less people, you get less GDP growth. That's just part of it. But I find this kind of interesting because we have about that same, share of GDP just coming straight out of, at least actually, just coming straight out of the AI capex right now. Just building hundreds of billions of dollars worth of data centers and obviously power to power them and everything. So it's kind of interesting that you may be muting something that would normally be a bit of a drag, not a huge drag, but a drag on growth. You kind of replaced it with, basically less immigrants, more computers. And it's kind of netting itself out for the moment. That could become important if, let's say 2 years down the road, we still have very low net immigration, low to negative, and this AI, capex boom starts to peak and come back lower. Then all of a sudden that netting effect would go away, and you might actually start to feel some of the growth implications of net immigration falling. We'll see. And something else that was interesting, we talked a little bit maybe on the show about there was a subprime auto lender that went bankrupt here recently, and it kind of went from everyone thinking it was fine to bankrupt really, really quick. And it's interesting. Basically one of the big reasons is a lot of their lending was to immigrants. And obviously, if the immigrants go away, they're not probably going to pay their car loan. So next thing you know, their income just gets smashed. And I do think that is a bit of a wake up call to some other areas of the economy that, if that can happen to them, there's no way that's the only part of the economy that was depending heavily on immigrants, whether that's immigrant labor, immigrant consumption in their case. And I think about construction. I mean, for now it's muted because we don't need a bunch of it, but let's say that changes. Not to mention, elder care, things like that, where it's a big part of the labor pool. We haven't really maybe there are stresses there we just haven't heard about, but I haven't heard about any. So I'm kind of on the lookout for more stress coming from a lack of immigrant labor, as well as possibly a lack of immigrant consumption, as we saw with vehicles there. And that may start to touch, used car values and things that could come down, which would be very helpful for inflation. And one other thing I'll mention really quick, and then we're done, is we got a bunch more tariffs yesterday. We had, kitchen cabinets, we had bathroom vanities, we have pharmaceuticals, and heavy trucks. The trucking industry is in a nasty recession right now. I just told you how great the economy is doing, but trucking isn't, because we front ran tariffs and now there's really no demand because you already pulled it forward. That can pick up though because of that. Although the goods economy itself, is bad. Services is great, goods bad because goods got more expensive with tariffs, obviously. So if the heavy trucking were to pressure trucking in any way, that would be very bad. But it's not clear to me that it will. And on pharmaceuticals, that would be a big deal if it really was hey, period, full stop. If you don't build a factory here, 100% tariffs. But the reality is, if you did a trade deal with the U.S., Europe and Japan, that doesn't count for you. It's still 15%. and we get 60% of our stuff from Europe. So it's kind of most of it. So this will hurt Singapore, China, India, but really not Europe or Japan. That would be interesting to see how it shakes out. Obviously, it will lift costs. The furniture stuff will absolutely lift costs. For furniture, that's already inflation running pretty hot. So if you need furniture, you might want to either A, go now and look for a deal, or B, just hold on for a while. But that's it. I hope everyone has a great weekend. I hope maybe you can hear the people moving furniture upstairs. It's incredibly loud, but have a great weekend. We'll be back next week. I think I have one more episode in me Monday before I'm on vacation for a couple weeks, taking the odd vacation in the fall when everyone else does it in the summer. I think it's more fun. But see y'all next week. Don't forget, you can download, subscribe, knowyourriskpodcast.com. Check us out on YouTube, everywhere on social media, InstaFace. You know how to find us. All right, cheers.
Investment advice cannot be given without a client service agreement. Zach Abraham is an investment advisor representative of Trek Financial, an SEC registered investment advisor. Bulwark Capital Management is a marketing name only and does not carry a separate registration.